But first one, Portal. Who here has not played Portal? Has anybody not played or seen Portal yet?
A resounding silence.
Yeah, that's basically what I expected. I'm sure when I played it I haven't played it, but I've seen it. Interesting. But you know all about it, I guess, then. Make a copy. There's make a copy. Make me a damn copy. Copy! Portal. Easy. Oop. There! I just woke up. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know how to type yet. Yes. All right.
Gotta warm up them fingers.
Portal. PC. Bigger. Nope. Bigger. Too big. Nope, not quite. Just a little. Just stop. There we go. 140. Remember that number. I won't. Remember the gist of what the game about, but not the finer details. Watched it a while ago, but never got around to playing it. Hey, Pookie! How you doing?
It is, I mean, this is kind of skipping forward in the review, but it is regularly on sale for very cheap. I recommend it.
Oh yeah, I'd strongly recommend the game. Okay, so first, my first blind playthrough where I literally knew basically nothing about the game other than I'm going to have a bunch of physics puzzles ahead of me. That was literally my level of knowledge of the game. And I hope that was somewhat apparent at times while I played the game, though honestly, I plowed through that game. There wasn't a whole lot of sitting there. There wasn't a whole lot of sitting there and going, what do I do here? It was more just, oh, portal, jump, die. Oh, I missed the jump. Portal, jump, die. Oh, I missed the jump. Portal, jump. Hey, I made it. And then we were done. That was about my experience with most rooms. I had a ton of fun. I loved the game. But I did kind of destroy it. It was short. I think it was like a couple hours it took me.
Yeah, I think it was 3 or 4 hours. And then you were just like, I guess the stream's over. I guess we beat it.
I know it was less than a full stream normally. I think it was like 2.5, 2:45, something like that. It's pretty short.
Yeah, it's a short game. It was, the history of it, at least for people who don't know, it was originally bundled with the orange box, which included, I think, Half-Life 2 and Team Fortress 2.
Half-Life 1 and 2, wasn't it?
Actually, I was going to look it up before I just start talking out of my ass here, the orange box, because I know
it was definitely Half-Life 2. I don't remember if it had Half-Life 1 in it. I don't think they had it fixed. Half-Life 1 at the time.
Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Portal, and Team Fortress 2. So it was bundled in that, and it came out in like 2007, I think. So like instant, like people loved it. It's short, but it was what probably could have just been disregarded as a tech demo, turned into like a very lovable, short little game that people just absolutely adored playing. There wasn't too many physics puzzle games like it. They're fairly common now, and by today's standards, it's pretty easy because it's stuff that if you've played a lot of games, you're used to. But it kind of pioneered a lot of that game design. Not a lot of games kind of did that. You don't really have a gun to shoot things. Everything is just physics based, and it's actually fun. There's a lot of games that try to do that, and it just kind of becomes kind of monotonous and boring. But this game it's got a lot of charm to it.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of other physics-based puzzlers that end up being like, okay, well now you need to move this brick onto this side of the seesaw and then jump over here and blah blah blah. The same sort of tired puzzles that you've seen over and over. But the way that Portal approaches puzzling with the portal gun is all about using the physics engine itself. The fact that you maintain momentum traveling through portals, the fact that you can put portals in places where you kind of have to break your brain to think about. You have to think about in a non-linear, non-realistic space in order to be very, very effective with the portal gun.
Oh yeah.
But it was a really interesting take on using a physics engine to its fullest. because the source engine is physics based. There's no messing about with it. It's all physics based. And a game like Portal could only be done on something like Valve's engine.
Yeah, at the time.
At the time.
Yeah, physics was a... Anytime you see physics in old games, it never works right, because there was no physics engine where somebody used it for games to be able to pull in and make their physics real. Which is why you got ridiculous stuff in the old 16-bit days. Like, and this is my number one example of like infuriating game physics. We're like, hey, it's a puzzle you've got to solve. Okay, I'm gonna put this box on top of that box, and then I'm gonna push the bottom box to move all the boxes over, and the top box doesn't move and just falls on me as I push the bottom box, because there's no force, there's no friction, there's nothing for the game to say the top box should be moving too. All it knows in the code is you're pushing an object, so it moves that object and everything else stays where it is until there's no object below the one above you, and then it does the drop calculation check, and oh, there's nothing below it, so I have to bring this down to the ground. God, that drove me insane. I hated old physics games because that's not physics! How can you have a physics puzzle if that's not physics? Yeah, that's my stance on those. Okay. Now, this was the first time I was like, ooh, physics work. This was wonderful.
Yeah. The source engine was something really special at the time. Sorry, Pseudo.
Yeah, so that was basically what I was just going to say too. This was peak source engine. This was like the source engine was the engine. Everyone was like just drooling over it. So many mods for it. Everyone was working with it. I miss those days.
Indeed, we all do. Shall we actually start a proper review? Now that I've I've added a little chat blacking so that you can actually see the chat on the gray.
Nice.
Threw it in there. Real live video editing. I'll go ahead and...
Oh.
Oh?
Oh.
Oh?
Oh.
Oh?
Uh-oh.
Oh. Oh!
You had me worried. I thought your computer was like crashed or something. I'm like, uh-oh. Everything turned yellow. Like, ooh.
Why is everything yellow? Oh, did my stupid webcam went back to auto white balance again? I don't know why it does this.
Whatever. Okay. So, with it in mind that this is a short-ass game, I've never played it or seen it, Housegood. You're late! Get in the corner.
Rude. It's Rubido.
Another game, lots of games on the backlog again. I already sat in the corner. Well, you can take the dunce hat off then and come join the class, Rubido. My PC is in the corner of the room. Say mine is too. My desk is a corner. The corner of the house is just a desk. It is a massive, massive desk. I just have this huge beast of a desk. I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so world building. With the fact that it's a short game in mind, I want to state that we are not giving it any leeway or credit for being short. It's not like the world building is going to be, oh, it was a short game, they did well with what they had. We've got to look at it as a whole, like every other game.
Of course.
Completely agree.
Yeah, world building, like this game is going to be interesting because there's a lot of people, you know, who will try to defend a lot of this stuff because it is, you know, well regarded. But I mean, you still have to. It was, you know, not a huge project, and like Portal 2, you know, is the extension of Portal 1, and that game is fantastic and has a lot of stuff good for it. So, you know, Valve also knew what was going on at the time. They knew what they were making, so it's not like they're going to be, or they shouldn't be upset with, you know, any sort of critique that happens to it, because we just look at Portal 2, which will probably address most of the things I'll bring up. But there really isn't much direct world building. You are in a setting, and there's a lot of stuff that it kind of... There's tidbits around everywhere, and it's very fun to kind of discover what's going on. They definitely put you in a neat scenario with, you know, being Shell and having Gladys kind of conduct experiments on you. But, you know, there's nothing really there. they don't. It's all kind of just surface level. There's not a whole lot of depth to it. There's a little bit of more stuff you can dive into if you're paying attention to what's around you. But overall, like, I'm just gonna say, because it's a short game, there just isn't really enough time to really provide you with much. So for what's there, it's definitely okay.
I would say it is definitely deserving of an okay. I wouldn't say that it's bad. Like, there's not a lot going on there, but what is there is pretty good. But there's not enough to give you like a fully fleshed out world. So like, I think an okay is appropriate.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind the okay. 100%. That was what I was going to put it in as well. It's not a good, because it's just not long enough for good. But it has more than one would expect from a 2 or 3 hour game.
Yeah.
And what is there is tangible.
The length doesn't really matter too much. I mean, you can have a short game that just has a fantastic world added to it, but like, this game just doesn't have much. There's not much depth prevented for it. Like, you can really, throw someone in an hour or two thing. Like, movies are like an hour and a half long, and there's some excellent world building in movies.
A movie and a game are different worlds, though. You can do a lot more in a movie in an hour than you can in a game.
Yes and no. I mean, it depends on the players going, but it's still
or
just
if
like
you're Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of shorter games out there that you can world build. Like, I'm not saying story, I'm saying world build, right? You can walk around and present them an awesome world to be in. That doesn't have to take 10 hours to do that. But I said this is kind of just surface level.
Well, you're in a room owned by one company basically the whole time, right? So, or in a building owned by one company, but the glimpses into the outer world and also into the company itself, and I really felt that the glimpses into how the company operates gave me a glimpse into the world that they're in, if that makes sense.
100%.
It gives you an idea of what this world is like. If this company is in the world acting this way, it gives you an idea. What's this? Stop it. Stop what?
What are we stopping? Yeah, I agree. I think the tidbits of what you get of the rest of the company was an interesting view into it, and sort of gives you a lot of context, which is important in world building. But at the same time, it could have had a lot more to it.
I mean, you can pay me, but I still won't stop. I love this too much.
We're not going to stop.
Pog bit! Thank you very much for the pog bit. It's also 420, Just saying, it's 420. You know it's 420?
Yeah.
Suddenly Deus disappears.
So,
go ahead.
Sorry, that's probably all we really need to say for world building. It got some content there at least. Especially for its length, it's more than just a tech demo at least.
Yeah, for sure.
And then characters. I think.
Hey, Process Music, how you doing? SM7. Yep, there's 2 of them. Almost everyone on the show has one. Almost. We are talking about video games. Our favorite thing to do.
We're discussing characters in the first Portal game right now. Just finished up talking a bit about the world building. Now we're moving on to characters. All 2 of them. So you've
is that who got you your SM7 pseudo?
It is.
I'm putting 2 and 2 together.
They are fantastic, and I love them.
Welcome, and thank you for benefiting the show so much.
You know what?
I was going to do that.
On the thing.
I know what you're doing. I was going to do that.
Yeah, well, you're too slow.
I know, I'm taking a dab. What do you want, man? It's 420 here. All right, characters. All 2 of them. Pseudo. Go for it. Rage is busy and I'm busy. Welcome to the table, unprocessed music. The table gets bigger. The table got bigger.
Okay, well, the two main characters that are at least presented to you are the character you play as, which is Shell, as well as GLaDOS.
C-H.
Chell. I always mix that up. Yeah, Chell and GLaDOS. I can't remember if they actually give you how much else is presented. I know there's writing on the walls and portraits of the people that are there, but I don't think there's any actual development for them besides just maybe a little bit of hinting through some dialogue. But yeah, the two characters are just you, who is the silent protagonist, as well as the kind of maniacal AI that is just trying to perform experiments on us. And you need to, deal with them. And I don't care a whole lot for the silent protagonist, but I do understand why Valve would use it quite a bit. Yep. I mean, it allows you to get immersed pretty easy. I know for some people, if you're playing as a character and they start saying and doing things that you would never say and or do, then that immersion just instantly gets broken, and it's hard for you to pull that back.
Yep.
And I think Portal is one of those games that you kind of needed that immersion. You needed to feel like you were kind of a rat in a maze, trapped in a puzzle, trying to figure out how the hell am I going to get out of here? What the hell's going on? Who the hell is this thing talking to me? So I think at least at that level, that was fine. The actual, I just want to go to designer. I should talk about GLaDOS. GLaDOS is done very well. I really, really like how they presented her. I really like the writing. I kind of like how it starts off, it doesn't really start off so maniacal. Like, oh, I'm just, performing experiments for an AI, but there's slight little
clinical, not necessarily maniacal.
Yes. There's slight hints to some sort of, questionable things going on. And then eventually, you get to a point where the switch flips and you're like, okay, this thing is evil. This thing wants to just to kill me. It's lying to me. Oh God, what's going on? And then I won't try to spoil too much, but when you actually end up confronting it, it's well done. But I think there's only two characters. Definitely could have benefited from more. It's kind of hard to go back and think about this because there's kind of a subconscious bias I have due to having played Portal 2, and Portal 2 kind of has fixed anything I would have complained about Portal 1, so it makes the things that Portal 1 was missing a lot more clear. But I don't kind of want to just use that as an example because it's unfair for what they were working with at the time. But
yeah,
I'd say
see that's the thing though. I would say for Portal the game, not thinking about the sequels, not thinking about anything that's been built around the game, just the game itself. I actually think they did exactly what they needed to do, which was have a tiny cast. They needed to only have a couple of characters. And the characters that they do have, granted one of them is a silent protagonist, are written very, very well. And the silent protagonist role allows you to get in the context of being the person that is stuck having to do these puzzles. And I think that was absolutely the correct choice.
Yeah. It is. They really didn't have the time to put more things in.
Or funds. It was a low budget too. Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't need anything else in that game.
Yeah. I didn't mean so much development time or funds. I just meant for what they had for gameplay wise. If that was what they're sticking to for that kind of, not because it kind of had tech demo feels, but they put enough content into it so it's so far away from just being a tech demo. And I mean, if they try to put in more, but then the game still ended early, then you would have left a lot of unanswered questions. But having just that one character, and then you just confront that one character, and then that's the actual story. I think that's fine. I think that was a good design choice on their part. I think overall they wanted to keep it short in scope.
I think I get what you guys are saying. I do agree. I think the way to sum it up is that because there's not a lot of characters, even though it's short, when it ends, it still feels complete. Nothing feels unanswered or hanging or loose threads. Everything's been wrapped up into the nice package in that short time, and more characters would have been, just things that couldn't have been dealt with and would feel unanswered and incomplete.
Yeah, it would have been fluff, and it would have just increased the scope to a point where you've now muddied the concept of your game.
I think that's a good point. There really isn't much fluff in this. Everything is explicitly designed and intentional, which I think is very, very meritable of the game. It is designed very well to a T of what they wanted, and anything that probably wasn't necessary was just cut.
Which I'm personally a huge fan.
Yeah, it's very well done.
So I would say characters I would like to give a good.
I can't argue against it. There's a bunch of viewers at this point. Does anybody think that the characters in Portal PC doesn't deserve a good? Can anybody argue against what we've just said?
Like, even though there's only one that's actually written, that one is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no rule to, you know, having to have more than one for it to be good, right? The characters that are there are good, and that's what it is.
It's a definite quality over quantity approach.
Yeah. Something, the game we played last night that had a shit ton of characters that no one cared about.
Yeah, I can't name a single character from that game, and not a single one of them had... Oh, wait, yeah, Duke.
I remember Buck.
Buck, that was
Buck because that name is fucking stupid.
Yeah, I remembered it as Duke, which is equally stupid.
I think there was also Duke, though.
Was there?
I don't know, probably.
Maybe?
Wasn't there like an MCKY?
There's Mickey, Duke.
Yeah, Mickey. MCKY is what the...
And then there was the alien, that was Virgil.
Oh, yes, Virgil. I'm concerned what game we are talking about now.
We're ranting about ODST. We played through it last night, and all of us hated it.
It was so boring. There was literally a level where, okay, that's a 4-player game, and there was a level with 4 enemies. Some of us didn't even get to fire a shot, and it was like 10 minutes of walking through a city.
Yeah, a fucking terrible video game.
Where's your content, guys? What's in your level? Did you just make a level and dump the player in it? Okay, that's another review entirely. Let's get back on track here. Let's give this a good and start talking about good things again.
Portal is excellent. An excellent video game.
Although there are not many characters, the ones that are there are very well written. I would go beyond well written. I loved the writing on the AI. Loved the writing on the AI.
Stop changing my white balance, camera. Stop it.
Stop! The ones that are there are very well written. I think ODST is meant to be played solo to get the best experience.
No. That's not an excuse.
There is no video game there.
4 enemies in a 10-minute level, even solo? No. No. Although there are not... Also, we were playing on 1 under the hardest difficulty. Like, we cranked it up. We weren't playing on normal or anything.
Yeah, we were playing on Heroic, I think, the one under Legendary.
I think so.
And it was boring. There was no resistance. Most of the levels were empty and just walking around an uninteresting map. It's a bad video game.
Although there are not many characters, the ones that are there are very well written. There is no fluff to the dialogue. Everything adds context. Okay, just a little bit of clarity on fluff. Now, like, just because what is said is not directly relevant to the main story does not make it fluff. If it adds texture or context to the world itself or the characters in the game, it's content. Fluff is every single Square Enix RPG that I've played literally had an NPC I talked to that said, "The weather is nice today." That's not content. That's fluff. There's no point to that at all. To contrast, another Square Enix example, to shine some light on them, so I'm not just shitting on them. There was one line, because I read all the fluff to pick out this line, in 14, where they talk about the goblins' masks in 14. And they add context to the character. They explain why they wear these masks and why they have that shape. And that's great. That's content. That adds texture and understanding to your world and characters. It's not relevant to the story. Player doesn't need to know it, but if they went and talked to that person, they learned something. There's content there. Not even just the story, padding the game with no weight, right? Well, I mean, I literally had to read through 30 lines of fluff, like 30 like paragraphs of fluff. And this one comment was mixed into it all. And I was like, if you just said that when I talked to you, this would have been a great interaction. So. Why, what? Oh, because it's not entered, okay. That was weird. Way too high to be doing that to me. Storyline.
Storyline's an interesting one for this one.
It is.
A lot of the problems with it, like Pseudo said earlier, get fixed in Portal 2.
Interesting. That makes me really want to play it even more because
it's very good. We should co-op it. Well, you should play the solo campaign, and then we should co-op it because it is actually 2 separate campaigns.
Oh, interesting. I like it even more now. I was already going to call the original Portal a good story. Good storyline.
I was going to go with okay.
Yeah, I was leaning more towards okay.
It's not long, I agree. But there's just
I would say it's definitely competent. But like it's not great.
The character changes his realization and understanding of the world as he plays the game.
A little.
He goes from, being an obedient, you're literally just listening to it. Hey, it's helping me. Okay, right on. Hey, it's really, it's giving me all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now it's trying to kill me. Wait a minute, the world is not as it seems.
The problem with having it be the silent protagonist is that that's kind of just up to the personal interpretation of what kind of goes on. Because it can be anywhere, right? Like a lot of people cannot pick up on that until way later, and then to them the experience would be completely different, right? Or someone could pick up on it right out of the gate, being like, I don't trust this AI, it's obviously something's going on here, there's no one else here, I'm the only one, this is bad. So it's like that's kind of unfortunately there's a gap, there is no story at that point for the character.
That's a fair point.
You kind of it gets filled in, which is fine, because you can fill it in with your own things and it still makes the experience enjoyable. But from an actual storyline perspective, the story is kind of just it's nothing really unique. There's a lot of stuff that are kind of similar to it, where it's experiments are here, person breaks out, things happen, and then it ends. There's not the conflict in it is still well done. It's nothing. You don't think back of wow, that affected me, or there was a lot of substance here, a lot of depth. I was enthralled with what's going on. I was kind of just yeah, I'm running through and it's keeping me entertained, and I'm committed to kind of what's going on and seeing this through. But compared to some of the other things that it didn't really need that storyline. It didn't really need that full narrative. It was kind of just you're playing around with puzzles, and they still gave you a reason to play around with puzzles, which is fantastic. But I don't know if there was really much of an actual story there. But this is also it's hard for me because I've played Portal 2, and it's that they did add a story in that, and it's just you'll play and when you notice it, you're okay, yeah, this is how this would be done with a story that was included.
If Valve had approached it as a video game rather than a tech demo.
Yeah,
that's fair. It was never meant to have much story. Yeah, it's just what they have is very good.
It is
totally competent.
Yeah, it is totally competent for what it needed. But it's hard for me to.
What they have, I would go beyond competent. Maybe just lacking enough to call it a good in our rating.
But would you call it excellent? Because I wouldn't. It's good. It is. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I enjoyed it a lot. I wouldn't call it excellent.
It's a really, really expensive French 5-star delicacy plate. You paid a whole lot for it. It comes out, and then it's just a bite. And damn, that was a good bite, but it was just one bite.
See, I disagree. It's a pretty good bite. It's an amuse-bouche at a nice restaurant, I'd totally pay $30 for that. But Am I going to pay? Am I expecting something like 5-star French restaurant? No, because that's $100 a plate, no matter what you're getting on it. It's an entirely different thing.
It's still tiny that what you get, though. I mean, you could be disappointed with what you got, and you probably would because we won.
I'm not disappointed in the volume.
Interesting.
I'm disappointed in what they've done with it. They could have told a lot more story than they did. That was one of the places where they pared down a little too much.
So you would have needed less. I guess you don't need less silent protagonists. It could have been
not necessarily less silent, but
it could have been
a little bit more involvement.
Yeah, notepad, writings, things to interact with, voiced lines.
Just more involvement from GLaDOS. For most of the game, you have no interaction.
That's it's like about half the game you have interaction with them, I'd say.
The interaction is just encouragement for the most part. Half the game, it's like, yay, you did it, good job, thank you. There's not much substance to that.
He gives you some direction too. He's the one telling you how to do things at the beginning, giving you basically the tutorial.
Yeah,
to help you through the game.
Yeah, it's still just encouragement. It encourages you to use the mechanics, but that's not a story. Is the main thing. There's no you don't find anything really about what's going on. They don't near the end is where all the story is kind of packed in the last half an hour to hour of the game, because it's kind of just the tech demo, the physics puzzles, and then now it's like, okay, well, we gave you a bit of what's going on. Let's just wrap that up, which they do well. But I mean, there's a lot more that could have been done there, even with the the time constraint they had on it of we want to keep it short. There's still a lot of more stuff that could have been put in there. There's a lot of stuff that you can get from reading the graffiti on the walls and stuff like that. I love the stuff they did with the cake and how the cake is a lie.
Yep.
But overall, it'd be hard for me to say it's a good storyline because the story fit what it was doing and it was okay. But I mean, I wouldn't think back to it when I'm thinking about Portal. It's not the things like, man, that storyline was amazing. Like the character is amazing, but there's a lot more to a storyline than just having one character.
That's fair. That's fair.
I can't agree with a good in our system for storyline. I think it's totally competent. I think it does what it needs to do. I don't think it's good.
Sounds good. Okay, sounds good. In conclusion, worst game ever made.
Yeah, IGN 1 out of 10.
Essentially, for chat, what I saw as the story was basically the tutorial. In a strange way, the tutorial is kind of the story to the game.
Yeah, for sure. And they do a great job of presenting it. It is one of the best presented tutorials you will see, but it's still just a tutorial.
Portal 2 is only 8 hours, so I will probably request that when I'm back up to the
co-op is another 4 or 5.
So it all fits under one still?
Yeah, it all fits under the 15, I think.
Yep.
I've done both, and it's really good. I really appreciate how the co-op is separate from the single player.
Yeah.
I think a lot of games would benefit, and even the game we played last night, I can't remember who was saying.
We played a game last night?
I can't remember who was.
We played Risk of Rain.
It was Board.
No, he didn't play.
Board said it's meant to be a solo experience. I'm like, if that's the case, then the co-op should have been its own separate experience, which a bunch of games do. I mean, they have a solo campaign as well as a co-op campaign, and it is kind of weird when you're like, oh, I'm playing as this lone rogue, and then the cutscene ends, and then you got 4 buddies just being like, oh, look at me, I'm alone. What's going on here?
And then only the host gets the good weapons. Oh, is so mad.
I wasn't. Portal. There we go. That's the word. Portal performance. How was it back in the day?
Thinking back, I don't remember any performance problems.
I had Orange Box for PC and for Xbox, just because I just apparently love Valve a whole lot, which I do. It ran well. A Source engine back then was like the engine. Like there's always some issues, but the bar that was set there, I mean, there wasn't anything you could really compare it to being like, oh man, this is so full of bugs and this game doesn't. It's like everything was just kind of weird and hacky when you're working with physics, especially like the amount of physics they were working with. But I mean, Valve has had that standard of stability in their games for a long time. So it ran very well on Xbox. It ran very well on PC. I would say good. I don't know if that was anything ever talked about was, Portal with issues. I think you could crash the game for certain machines if you did weird stuff of like, but I think it'd make intentional stuff of like seeing how much stuff you can put into a portal at once and have it fall.
Like bucket fly out of a scene or something.
Yeah, or like move too fast for it to like actually calculate. But those are more on like if you're getting to exploit territory, if you're not playing within the like designed constraints, you're kind of opening yourself to that.
Well, no, if you're crashing it because you're doing things the game was never designed to do, it's not the game's fault. The game was never designed to do it.
Yeah, it's like if you take a game, let's say, that has the ability to drop items, and you have a house, and you fill your house with watermelons, and the game crashes, you can't blame the game for that. At some point, you have to understand that there's limits. There are limits.
Definitely. Animation.
Now I want to fill my house with watermelons. I love watermelons.
It was a weird analogy, but it was a common thing in Skyrim because people would fill their houses with all this stuff they could grab or they'll duplicate it, and then you would Fus Ro Dah to like explode everything, and then all those physics calculations would just like cripple.
Just crash.
It would just cripple the machine at the time, and most of the time just crash. People are like, "Look, it sucks performance," and I'm like, "Come on, guys! Like, I get it, but at the same time, like." What do you want them to do? Just like add an item count to your how much stuff you can drop? It's like shoot yourself in the foot and then you complain that your foot hurts. It's like what do you want them to do? Like,
yeah, that's a good analogy. That's a good analogy.
When I overload my computer with physics objects, it has trouble, and it's like, well, don't do that.
Stop overloading it.
As long as it's not like if it was a quest that they were like, yes, to complete this quest you must drop 300 watermelons in your room and then Fus Ro Dah it, and then you couldn't do it because performance limitations, then sure. But I mean, if you can play the designed experience without too much trouble, then don't go looking for trouble and then complain.
Fair. But animation,
there wasn't much.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot.
There's the turrets, and then there's GLaDOS, and there's a bunch of smaller stuff in between.
I do like how the turrets looked.
Yeah, but they didn't animate too much. They kind of just
rotate
on the y-axis. But
and GLaDOS, like it moved weird, which is good, but it was also very weird.
I liked how the last boss moved. I really liked the experience of it. I thought it moved very mechanically.
I'd say okay. I think that, I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't like you looked at anything and it just broke your immersion and you're like, what the hell's going on? There wasn't like, I think it didn't really need a whole lot of animations because everything for the most part is physics based, so you didn't actually have to like artificially animate it. Things just moved and rolled as they did and interacted. And the portals, when they expand, they look great. The final thing with GLaDOS, it moves around fine, and the way things move. So I think it's okay.
I agree. It's definitely not a bad, because there was never a point in the game where I'm like, why isn't anything animated? That was never a thought in my head. It never occurred to me. It never bothered me. It was never there. Everything did what it should do. They just didn't use things that needed animation. Yeah, but it's not a good, because there was never a point where we're like, this is really nice animation.
Yeah, like there's still room for it. A lot of stuff, and you'll see it. And like, I got to stop bringing up Portal 2, but when you play the co-op, like there's a lot of gestures and stuff you can do with the other people, and they're fully animated, and it adds so much charm. But like for the first one, what they could have done, and it's like, I know why they didn't do it, and I wouldn't say it is competent, but like, it doesn't make sense for them to go overboard. Like they could have added a lot of animations to the portal gun and just made it like this super cool or like badass, whatever aesthetic they want to go for. But I mean, it didn't really need it. It had that simplistic charm. The whole game was a very, simplistic material feel and they kind of designed that to a T and ran with it.
Yeah, and when we get to art style, we can talk about that a little bit more. Because
do you want me to say competent?
That.
That what I was gathering?
Just to avoid colliding with our
good system,
our category.
Everything was always smooth. Nothing was ever jarring. The animation that was there has always looked good and natural for the thing that it is.
Yeah. It was never outstanding, but it was never bad.
Throw a dozen on an NPC and they would just run around screaming and then boom.
I enjoy the Saints Row games. They had their charm.
They're very silly.
They've got their issues, but it's one of those things where, you know, they give you that sandbox just to play in, and it's a fun sandbox. It started getting very ridiculous, but I mean, it's still fun.
Who wants to tackle style first?
So I'd like to talk a bit about it. Not necessarily like irrefutably, because style can be quite subjective. I think that they hit the nail on the head as far as not overdoing their art for such a simple puzzle game. They needed to keep it clear. They needed to keep it concise. They needed to keep it easy to track things. And while the aesthetic did change a bit when you get out of the testing chambers, it was consistent with the level of detail you were seeing in the actual chambers themselves.
Yep.
I think they did a very good job balancing those two very disparate environments. And like we were talking about with the portal gun, they chose to make it something that is not very complex. And I do not think in any way that is a downside. I think that suits the environment that it's in very well.
It totally looked in place.
Yeah, it's not something that's, you know, some finished product and needs to be super polished and ready for consumption by the masses. No, it's a prototype. And so it looks like a prototype. It's not very fancy. There's not a lot going on with it. There's weird knobby bits on the end. Like, I think the style was very well done.
Yeah, I'd agree. The big thing, since we talked about how subjective style is, the big thing was always consistency. And there's the kind of the moment of truth for it is when you do, you know, break out of your, I'd say, cell, so to speak, and you see, you know, you're outside of the little world that was created for you. It still kind of matches the overall feel of it. It is different. It's a lot more gritty, but it's still, you know, simplistic. There isn't a whole lot going on. There isn't, you know, stuff everywhere. It's not overwhelming. It's still the kind of same digestible presentation as everything else. It's just now just a bit darker, which I think was good because it's supposed to be, you know, that kind of false light, kind of like nothing's going wrong, and then you exit it and it feels, you know, different and, well, okay, this doesn't look great, and now it's dark, and it's kind of, you know, an easy feeling.
You get the feeling at the beginning that you're in it's an obviously sealed, cleaned, controlled environment. When you get out of it, you can tell everything's a little dirtier, things are kind of going wrong, more things are broken, less things work, but it still looks like the same world.
Yeah, one of the first things you see when you leave is you start seeing the graffiti. Yep. So, and that kind of adds a lot to that. It adds a lot to the style. When you're outside of what Gladys has created for you, you see kind of what's actually going on, and there's a lot more free form. There's a lot more, you know, it's more dynamic. There's a lot of other stuff going on. It's not all so pre-planned as when you're in her world. It's just kind of there, given to you. Everything's there for a purpose. You know, it's simplistic on purpose. You leave, it's still simplistic, but now there's, you know, a bit more ad hoc, chaotic style thrown in there.
Humans are chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah, and it contrasts between what, you know, the AI and what a robot would rigidly build you based off rules versus what, you know, someone with a bit more imagination, creativity, and spontaneousness would just scribble on the walls. And that's when you start seeing the things like the cake is the lie. You start seeing a drawing of a cake. You start seeing, you know, they lied all over scribbled, and overall, like it still fits. I really enjoyed it. I think it didn't, you know, you don't go out and all of a sudden it feels like a completely different game. It still feels like the same game, all the way up until the end. It's all, you know, stays consistent. Even the design of Gladys, it fits, you know, with the same aesthetic of everything else that's designed, from, you know, just the turret robots to the actual portal gun themselves. It just, I think it was a really good job on what they did.
That's a good point to bring up, that the gun, the turrets, and Gladys itself all look like the same tech.
Yeah, they look like they were built by the same engineer.
Speak now, or Portal forever have good style.
I don't think anybody's going to argue against that.
Yeah, even like the portals, like the coloring and everything too. Like they did a really good job with, you know, blue-orange indications on that, and that kind of thing. Like it's shown throughout. A lot of the stuff, you know, the coloring for the doors, it's blue. Some of the stuff is orange when it's not there. They kept the actual theming and like the color scaling within the same bounds. It's very, very well done.
Do you want to add any little details other than the basics?
I think that's fine. I think it's the consistency. I think most people, when they even just look at the cover of the game, will have an understanding of why it has good style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Musical score. One of the most iconic nerd songs of the decade.
And it's in the credits.
Yep.
They don't. Yeah, they have a. There is an instrumental score to it, and I don't remember. And even watching through the playthrough, it's there, but there was. I'm kind of leaning more towards the same basis that we've been going before to keep it consistent. Whereas, you know, if you don't notice it and remember it during the gameplay, it's probably an okay.
That's where I'm at.
I remember the tension building music specifically. That was really well done.
I don't.
Other than that, it's all forgettable except for Still Alive.
Yeah,
But how do we treat Still Alive?
The meme.
I think we definitely note that it has a fantastic credits song in it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, but it'd be hard to redeem it because it's not actually happening during the actual any of the gameplay.
The best part can be entirely skipped, and probably will be by many people unless they specifically just wanted to listen to that song.
Yeah, and it would unfortunately not fit anywhere else in the game. If that song played while you were walking around, it would.
Oh, it'd just be silly.
Yeah, it would. It was one of those things where like the score could have very easily been bad. You know, if they had, you know, cheesy music, or if it was too in your face when like stuff was going on, and it makes sense for what they had. It was atmospheric. You're in a room. It doesn't make sense for it to really be playing much music unless Gladys was like, "Here, I'm gonna. You look tense. I'm gonna play some music to help calm your nerves," kind of thing like that. But I think what they had was fine. I think it's okay. I don't think it needed to have, you know, super fantastic music. The credits is fantastic. So as long as we note that, and I'm fine with just giving it an okay.
I already said it fits. The credits music is absolutely worth sticking around for. How's that?
Sure.
I don't have any better way to phrase that. That's fine.
Voice acting. I haven't given my my opinion first yet. Here, I've been pulling it out of you guys. I thought it was good. Personally, I loved the AI talking to me. It was so well done. The little fluctuations in the tone, all the mechanical and metallic inflections in there. It was,
yeah, the modulator was excellent for sure. Like the modulator was perfect.
Yeah, I loved it. It amplified, added to, and improved my experience with the game infinitely, and if it wasn't there, I would not have liked the game as much. Period.
Yeah, it really what separates it from, a tech demo to a full-blown, game experience. The writing, the presentation of that writing really draws you in, and you really feel like there is an AI, kind of toying with you and messing with you, and that's what keeps you going through that whole experience. If you remove GLaDOS, this is just a physics puzzler that you play to kind of, hey, look, there's some new physics tech that's out. This is kind of neat and cool, and then it wouldn't be like that memorable of an experience. But GLaDOS makes it such, it embeds in your brain just what was going on, how it was presented, the feeling you get from it, how believable of a character it is just due to how it speaks to you. It's fantastically well done. One of the strongest features of the game is GLaDOS's writing and the way it was presented through its voice acting.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think this is an example of one of the times when voice acting really does make the game experience what it is.
Period. Short, sweet, no spoilers, but that just is. The game was the voice acting. And the sound effects.
Once again, this is a game with very very little cruft, but what there is really good.
Love the sound of the portal gun.
Oh yeah,
it is so satisfying just to open portals, as well as even just shooting the wall. Just the noise it makes. Whenever I get in the elevator, I just start spam shooting the wall. Fantastic sound engineering for those effects.
I played the game once. I still remember the sounds.
And then even one thing to also kind of note too is the positional audio they have, that you'll notice when when you're working with the balls of energy puzzles and they bounce off the walls and stuff like that. Those are also very well done. They easily indicate when it's being shot, where it's going, where it hit and where it bounced, and then where it stopped bouncing and blew up. They perfectly design with audio cues kind of what's going on there.
And the turrets.
Yeah, they spot you. There's the aiming, and then there's them firing.
The firing sounded great. The aiming was a great tell. There was information conveyed for the state of the turret through it. Yeah. Good.
100% good.
Accessibility. Well, it would have full key rebinding through the virtuality of the source engine.
I don't know if they have it on consoles.
Good point.
I don't.
This is per the PC though.
Yeah, it's true. We did specifically call it out as PC. I know Portal 2 has excellent accessibility.
I don't think there's colorblind options in Portal 1. There is subtitles.
There were separate audio sliders. I'm
yes.
sure.
Yes, there's audio sliders, there's key rebinding, there's subtitles.
So only things that are missing then are color stuff.
Which could be an issue with blue and orange portals.
Well, those colors are intentionally picked because they are very
different.
Uncommon to have a problem with.
Yeah.
But it is something that you cannot change.
Yeah. You would more or less have to be completely colorblind, which is super rare. And honestly, I don't know how they'd get around that.
Yeah. That's really, really hard.
I'm going to say okay. I think I'm okay with the good, because I think unless in an extreme situation, you should be able to play the game.
Yeah, also it's in the time it was in, like 2000, 2007, 2008. A lot of games don't even have volume sliders. I know it's the PC remake, but like...
No, we've never given, leeway just because it was old. We look at it today always. We've given lots of okays just because the era didn't have anything other than what they have. But I think I think this one deserves the good because they, knew to intentionally choose as contrasting portals as they could, and the rest of the environment is basically colorless for similar reasons as well as style. So there's no real need.
You talked me into it good.
The thing I would just change would be just to have them be configurable, but they just didn't really have the tech for that then.
Yeah. It was a technology limitation at the time, and it would be nice to have.
So they basically just turned it up to max colorblind mode by default.
Yeah, they picked the colors that have the least problems with them, placed them against just different saturation levels of black, and it ends up intentionally, without giving you options, being quite good for people with color issues.
And then it addresses all the rest of the issues we normally have with sliders and options and color, subtitles and.
Yeah, you've talked me into a go.
Ditto?
Yeah, I'm fine with the good. I usually just like to give good if they go out of their way to add a bit more.
Well, they went out of their way to set it up so they don't need to add it.
Yeah, but it's hard for us.
It's still that going out of the way bit that I'm talking about to make sure that it will encompass the broad majority. There's nothing higher than good. It's a 3-level system to keep it simple.
Yeah, good's fine. Like I said, there's not really much it would have needed besides just a bit more color support.
Yeah. Other than that, which we really there was no precedent in the industry for at the time, and the fact that they did as well as they did, I think was intentional. I think Valve knows enough about accessibility to intentionally choose those colors. I don't think it was an accident.
Her audio sliders, closed captions, bindable keys. Most people should be able to. And then mouse aiming and keyboards. Version and stuff is up to you.
You can choose to use a controller with it as well, I believe.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Source Engine. You can rebind everything.
Mechanics. We've talked about Portal a lot. We might not have a lot of time for Dead Space 3.
Portal's really good.
There's a lot to say about this 3-hour game.
Yeah, spend almost as long talking about it as we did playing it.
Yeah.
Mechanics, the Portal is brilliant. It's executed perfectly.
Yeah, it's super well done. The physics puzzles are designed very well. There isn't too much and there isn't too little. There's just the right amount, and they're paced to the player very well. They don't overwhelm you at the start being like, hey, here's everything you can do in the game right now. They start you off with just one portal. You get one portal and that's it. You get to shoot one thing, and then eventually when you do a few puzzles with the one portal, okay, now you get both portals, and they get you used to that. And the game, well, now we have boxes and how to move stuff. They get used to that. Well, now we have the energy orb that moves around, and then they start introducing, okay, well, now there's, other stuff going on. There's pitfalls. They add on everything at a really good rate. There are actually quite a bit of mechanics in there and dynamics in between them, and they start introducing them one at a time, and they start combining them all, and then it all kind of comes into near the end where you kind of use everything that you've learned in the game to defeat the boss.
I figured out what it is.
What?
Why my camera is resetting. It's because my mouse turns back on.
Could also be reading the bright edges of your camera. You look in the Discord window.
It could be, but no, it's literally every time I touch my mouse.
Weird.
Like my mouse goes to sleep when I'm not touching it, and then I touch it and it wakes up.
Weird.
Is it plugged into the same hub as the...
Nope. It's just running through the G-Hub software.
I was going to say, then it's all through the same driver.
Disable the webcam in the G-Hub software so that I can use the actual capture utility.
You know, it might be because of the white edge that it's doing that. Because when it wakes up in the Gcam software, it could reevaluate the white levels.
No, it's because of the light that's directly above me.
Okay.
It's an off-white light, not a white light.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I'm just going to type that up as the mechanics are great. Thing plays very well and is presented to the player a smooth and understandable manner. Sum up what you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Bugs.
Bucket surfing, like that's about it.
Yeah, it's mostly just like
Other
exploits.
than known engine issues, there are no real bugs, and your casual playthrough should be flawless.
Yeah, I mean, at least on the physics sense, if you're not looking for trouble, it's one of those things where you won't really find too much of it.
That's why I specified on your casual playthrough. You know? If you want to break your game, you always can. It doesn't really matter what game you're playing.
Yeah, but there's a lot of physics games where like you land on an edge wrong and then you super bounce. So it's another fun stuff like that. So that, at least on the physics level, it's very well done.
Bless you, floating point errors.
They're so fun.
I mean, Risk of Rain is just one big floating point error. RNG, good.
Yeah, there wasn't any.
There is no RNG.
Level.
Nor should there be.
Control, good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Control is everything you want from it.
No mouse acceleration, no mouse smoothing, configurable everything, including sensitivity, obviously. There are no problems. Like it controls like a Source game, which may not be your favorite thing, but if you're into the Source engine, it's great.
Look at the gameplay. I don't think this has ever happened before.
We just haven't done any Valve games.
Even like the control, like I feel like the Source controls fit better with the Portal style of games than they really did with kind of the other shooter games they had. Like it feels good just to kind of walk, and the acceleration to the portals, all the physics is consistent. So everything just kind of feels the same. You jump, you fall through, you move around, you're jumping on stuff. It's good. There's no point where you're like, I'm frustrated because I'm trying to fight with these controls they're giving me, or I'm not moving fast enough, or I can't jump on this ledge because I need to do some weird, stupid crouch jump. It's well done.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm sure that you feel the same way. Is that id Tech has always had a better first-person shooter engine, but the Source engine for physics and puzzles is truly excellent.
Oh yeah.
There's a big note for when you pick up objects, and to have that feel fine. It's actually very difficult to do. It's very difficult to figure out how close and how far to position that, because it's very easy for them to pick up a box and then hit the floor by accident and drop it, or hit a wall, or have it be too close where you can't see, or have it be too far away where they can't accurately drop it on a platform, because there's no depth on a 2D screen, so you can't actually see how far away if you're looking at it at a specific angle. So it's on that side of thing, it was all well done. It's all easy enough to pick up a box and place it without too much trouble and interact with all the objects.
Yep. It's all intuitive. There's not a lot of learning that has to go on. Your brain just figures it out. So to sum it up, we like Portal. It's a good game.
I just saw. Yeah, oh, you would have seen it too in the corner there. There was a buddy of mine just launched Sekiro that I know doesn't really play Sekiro, and I was like, that's a good game. We're not talking about a good game right now. We're talking about Dead Space 3. We just finished talking about a good game. That's some of the best ratings and grades we've ever given a game.
It's true. That is some of the highest ratings.
That's some of the best I've ever seen pop up, and that was a 3-hour game. 3-4 hours.
Game doesn't need to be long to be good.
Yep.
In fact, I would say that often being long hurts a game because you need to be better for more time. It's harder.
I would agree. Yeah. You know what we have to review so that we can get a good review up there that might even beat that one? We have to review Bloodborne.
Do we not have a Bloodborne review?
No, I've never finished it on stream.
Shit, we gotta do a Bloodborne review.
Do a playthrough of Bloodborne at some point, and then we'll do a 2-hour review of it.
Yeah, it needs all 2 hours.
I'm hoping the throws screen and FARC is where you begin with Dead Space 3, and not just something happened. How do reviews work if Deus is the only one to finish the game? Usually they've watched me play it.
We will generally have watched him play it, and usually have already beaten the game. Deus was busy with World of Warcraft for basically 2 generations of video games.
Pretty much. I ran 2 major raiding guilds. My main guild had 120 people in it to put together a solid 40-man team every week. And then in case that guild ever needed anything, I ran a second guild known as which I called my feeder guild. And then that guild would be like the main off tanks. I was the main tank, and then like my main general off tanks that really wanted to try their hand at raid leading, that I would then mentor and teach how to raid lead as well. They would take over the feeder guild raids and lead those in their off time, so they would have 2 raid times, but they wanted to learn raid leading, so that was how we did it. And then anytime I needed somebody on the main one, I always had somebody good, because I just went to the feeder guild and went, hey, we need one of these. Who do we bump up to the main team? And we've had somebody already in our system basically training and rating under my rule set and how we do things, so that when they popped up into the main team, they were already accustomed to everything. Worked really well. We were a really good raid team. We set server records for progress.
So I think we can blast through Dead Space 3 in half an hour. I don't think that's a problem.
No.
Yeah.
Anybody think that's going to be a problem?
No. World building?
Bad. They ruined the other games.
Yeah. Yeah. This one. Yeah.
They successfully made the first 2 games worse.
They went the wrong direction. Gotta build the world, not go the other way. Not destroy the world that you've built.
But moon
they did the opposite. They did the opposite. They didn't do world building. They did world destroying.
Try to avoid spoiler. Fuck the spoilers. It's Dead Space 3.
It's a bad game. Don't play it. Characters, they kind of ruined Isaac, and they also kind of ruined everybody else.
Hey, Raven. Yeah, it was that bad.
It was kind of all over the place. Like,
yeah,
usually you don't factor in other games, but this one you kind of have to, because they lead into it, and you get a consistent feel of the character. And then this one,
it's the same consistent, continued story. They changed all of a sudden, canon.
Everyone just goes buck wild.
Things are just like different. Character. I'm going to go with bad again.
This was absolutely mostly EA's fault.
Oh yeah.
Who was it that made Dead Space? Was it Radical?
No, Visceral.
Visceral did a fantastic job with the first 2 games. They were absolutely wonderful video games. They looked great. They sounded great. The stories were great. The world was intriguing. They had all of this lore that you could dive into. Fantastic video game. The third one was terrible.
The second one?
After EA stepped in.
The second one is actually my all-time favorite survival horror game. That's how much I liked the second one.
Oh yeah, like it's definitely up there for me as well. I don't know if I can say favorite off the top of my head, but it's definitely top 3.
My second favorite is RE7.
Yeah, RE7's really good. I think it might be my favorite, even though I can't finish it.
That makes it your favorite. Because it tweaks your horror. That's why you can't finish it. That's a good horror game. RE7 is fucking fantastic. You're not fucking wrong.
I am fucking stoked for RE8.
Oh, RE8's gonna be so good. I'm so hype. Dead Space 3 was a big excuse for EA to say single player games don't make money. 100%.
Yep.
Absolutely. They sent that game to slaughter.
Yep. Yeah. It was a sacrificial lamb. Storyline bad. Where
storyline I'd actually say was okay.
Really?
The ending's bad, but I think at least it starts off okay. There's stuff going on. It didn't.
Okay. We'll give it an okay. Because I forgot at the beginning of the game they had already made a chunk before EA jumped in. And I did really like that. Because I remember as I was playing the game, I was playing and I'm like, this is pretty good. Why are people complaining about this? So the very beginning part kind of sucked, but then this is good. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, this is where EA stepped in. And I could like feel it as a jarring experience in the game. It leaves a foul taste. And then the shot to the face and teabagging happens. Yep, that's accurate. The story started good. I hope you stop before it goes to crap. That's all I'm going to say on it. Now I know what saga I'm going to submit next. Uh-oh. You stopped. I'm glad. Performance?
I didn't play it on release. I don't recall any big bug reports as far as performance goes.
I played it on release.
I think I remember some frame drops when I was playing it.
There's quite a few frame drops. There's a bunch of times where
cool. Totally down for a bad.
A bad? I was going to say okay.
I'm okay with okay. It's definitely still playable.
It's playable.
You could tell it wasn't optimized and polished. There was a lot of roughness, but it definitely was still. You didn't like turn a corner and then get 10 frames and be like, oh, I can't look in that direction, otherwise my GPU is going to melt.
There was never a time where a alien runs at me or a necromorph runs at me and drops my frames and prevents me from responding properly and hits me or anything like that. It's just if I turn the mouse too quickly and stuff like that in some areas.
That being said, like, your machine for when this game out is amazing. Like, it trounces all over the system requirements. The game did not run on hardware from the time. It would have run much worse, is what I'm trying to say.
I beat it originally with my old computer, which would have been at 680, and it probably ran about the same, which is kind of strange. That might just be the best it can run.
Sounds entirely CPU bound then.
Yeah,
or could be engine bound.
Well, that's the same thing basically.
Well,
it's like the game's core. Like it's limited, probably from a bunch of different areas, but
it'll play. You'll get through the game. It won't interfere with your ability to play it or finish it. Bad is reserved for like
those PC ports that don't run.
I was gonna say Horizon Zero Dawn at launch and stuff like that, where you're like, oh good, 2 frames, thanks.
I know that game still runs like garbage.
Yeah.
Like it does not run well.
Well, it's okay now. I still managed to get 50, 60 frames in 1440 and play it and finish it. And it took some tweaking, but I did run OBS on the same system at the same time. Streamed it.
I still wouldn't say it's a good performance.
I never said good. I said okay.
Anyway,
I said okay.
Back to Dead Space. Because animation, I think, is actually one of the places where this game is pretty good.
Yeah, they always knock it out of the park with that. They did always a fantastic job. I love the enemies. I love the guns. Also, just like Isaac's suit is just always fantastic.
Isaac's suit is dope.
They would always keep upgrading that. And it's
the necromorphs are still great. The guns are great. The reloading is great. The suit is great. Yeah.
Yep.
Style.
This
is one of the ones. This is one of the ones that I want to bring up. I want to bring up the inconsistency.
Yeah, 100%.
Because this game had a lot of inconsistency in it.
Yeah, that's where I was confused. Like, it still used the same style from 1 and 2, and I love the style in 1 and 2. But this one, it just gets inconsistent. It gets kind of all over the place, and it gets a little bit jarring. I don't know if I'd go as far to say bad. I would just say okay, because overall it's still okay. It just wasn't consistent enough to have it be pushed to that good. I mean, the enemies are still great. The ship and stuff, the design is still fine. The
ship
space
sections
stuff is cool.
are great. The rest of it is not, and it's so inconsistent between them that it fails even on the consistency level. I was naturally inclined to give it an okay at first as well, because I love the ship aesthetic so much. But then I thought about it more, and I used the word love, and it's entirely my opinion of the ship's aesthetic pushing it there. One of our key metrics is consistency, and it shits all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bad?
Consistency is really the core of our style category, and Dead Space 3 is not.
Yeah, they definitely took 2 and then just ham-fisted a new style on top of it, and they just kind of mixed together into a mess. Instead of just, trying to redo it in a brand new style, they're like, well, let's keep what we have, but then also try to implement, some new fresh style to it, and then it just didn't blend or mix well, or it just wasn't done well. It just was kind of put in there, and it is kind of jarring, and like anything that's really kind of good about it was just what was kind of left over from Dead Space
Dark Space. I want Space Souls. I want Dark Space.
I want Sekiro, but as Gundams.
Yes.
Laser swords.
Yes, that would be dope.
That's cool.
Big, giant, big-ass other robots.
Well, FromSoft is from Japan.
They have made mech games. So.
Yep. They did make but a lot of the Armored Core games.
But getting Gundam IP from Shueisha is not easy.
Yeah,
and Bamco is not exactly risk-taking.
I know.
I don't think I'd want them to. I just use Gundam because I don't know a better term to describe that style.
From has made Gundam games.
Mech.
Yeah, but I think, but even I don't know if mech would always do it because that's a wide spectrum because there's land mechs, but I want the giant flying
space mechs.
If the style that they could pull for that for what they have for like their original styles or even their source styles from like, they could do a whole lot of that. I mean, they could have like a space themed thing that's still based on like feudal Japan. That'd be fantastic, like a modernized version of feudal Japan, where like it's all the same kind of ideals and hierarchy and the kind of respect they have, but just the tech is just skinned on top of it. I think would be fantastic.
Dead Space. Although if you want, we can someday do an episode all about games that should be mated together. or IPs
Yes,
we'd
we
like
can
to see
totally do
done.
that. Musical score. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
There were some parts where it helped.
Oh wait, didn't it
helped,
have like really bad country and stuff in a bunch of areas where we were just like, what is
I repressed
this?
that memory. I repressed that memory. Bad.
The music was so bad, we originally repressed it. Luckily, we remembered before you went to play the game. That was... Even people... So there were people in the chat at the time that like country. And even they were like, why is this here? It's not even that it's just that we don't like country. It's just it made no sense. Why is there country music playing on a derelict spaceship in the dark?
Because apparently that's what you're supposed to fight necromorphs to? I guess.
Voice acting? Didn't it have that really annoying character that everyone was hating the voice of?
Yeah. I don't want to say bad.
No, I don't remember it being bad.
It definitely wasn't good.
Yeah, it's definitely just okay. There was still a lot of effort, and the lines were still presented well, and there wasn't any like glaring inconsistencies or any kind of person that every time they talked you're like, okay, well this person just read their lines while not doing anything else, or like they didn't just like grab a sample or anything like that. It was just like they still had actual vocal performances. It's just I don't know if it was because the writing didn't let them go over the top, but it was just okay.
Not as good as previous games. Like Isaac in 2 is fantastic.
I would have rather Isaac from 1 than Isaac from 3.
Yeah, I agree. Although I will say, of all of the characters in the games, Isaac is by far the best played and best written.
Yes. Yeah, of course. I think the sound effects were still good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Visceral nailed it.
Yeah, it is.
As with previous games, the audio engineering is fantastic. Vacuum sounded good. Necromorphs sounded great. Lots of
Weapons
game
all
information fade sounds.
I'd also like to call out the weapon sounds because they were fantastic.
Is it okay if it's just in the audio? Kind of put a lot in there already.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Okay. If you watch the review, the weapons also sounded great.
We have a lot to say about the sound because it was really good. It's one of the things that Visceral nails.
Yeah, I mean, animation and sound effects are the areas of the game where when EA steps in and says, no, change your direction, they can still do it well. Like, most of it was still done competent, other than performance, which I think is coming from the engine that they were told to use.
Yeah.
Which is, again, EA. Accessibility, I think it's okay. Same as standard, is what I remember. Volume sliders and subtitles.
Volume sliders, CCs.
I don't even think it had CC. I think it was just volume slider and subtitle.
Did it have controller rebinding?
I don't believe so. I think it was keyboard rebinding.
It's third person, so FOV isn't really a thing. Oh, we didn't bring up FOV for Portal.
Oh.
I don't think there is an FOV slider in the original. I think you had to console command it.
Maybe definitely not for console. But
No, console command, he was saying.
I know. I was going to say
okay.
definitely not for the console versions. There was no slider, but for the PC, I think it depended on what version you had. They kind of added into the source engine a bit later. But yeah, it was always available there.
It's already long anyway. Volume slider, subtitle. There was keyboard, mouse, rebinding. That's it. Mechanics. Okay.
Yeah, they fixed. Oh, excuse me. Oh, can't deal with this Dead Space 3 bullshit. The mechanics were mostly fine because they're lifted directly from the other games. I feel like they improved the space traversal a bit. Just like little tiny bit.
I mean, I was already typing basically what you were saying while I was typing it. I felt the same way. It's okay because it's basically exactly the same as number 2. Didn't really change anything.
Except for one thing, and I almost forgot: microtransactions. It was the first game to have one of the first games to have single player microtransactions. You could pay to win the single player experience, and I don't think it makes the game overall be bad because we definitely know whose decision it was to put that in there. But my God, I still want to talk about how dumb of an idea that was.
So I'm going to say it doesn't affect the mechanics because they didn't change the mechanics of the game to encourage you to buy them.
Oh, they did.
Did they?
They did.
They did.
Yeah, you buy your weapons. You can buy your weapons with real currency and make the game easier.
But you can make the game easier, but is the game really designed to make you buy weapons?
For some people who aren't good at games, yeah.
If you want to be completionist, it is extremely grindy. I mean, you shouldn't want to be completionist because this is a bad video game, so don't spend that much time on it.
Yeah.
But if you want to be completionist, it is very grindy to get everything. Like, you just ignored the weapon crafting system because you don't need it. There's a whole crafting system in there that has tons of upgrades. You can do, like, rotational barrels, put different weapons on the same frame, blah, 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 blah. It's extremely grindy to get all those materials, and that was all microtransaction fueled.
So my argument is the main gameplay, casual gameplay through the thing itself is uninterfered with and unaffected by this. When I have a problem with it is when we start moving into the more modern scenarios of this, where you get like the newer Assassin's Creed level locking the quests to progress and making sure that the main quest doesn't give you nearly enough experience to get up to the level you need for the next step to force you to do grindy side content or buy experience boosters.
Yeah, my point was this is where it started.
Yeah, and that
like,
sucks.
This all had to start somewhere.
And
this
that
was
sucks.
EA being like, microtransactions in single-player games are okay. See, we had it. No one really hated it, you know, because it was ignorable. See, it doesn't detract from the experience. We can put it in. And then, you know, they just start cranking it up a little bit more and more and more. And next thing you know, your $60 game now costs $120 to actually play.
Yep. And I'm fully with you, and we can note it.
Yeah, we don't have. I want to talk about it. As long as it's in the audio, it's fine. But it's just something I want to talk about. This game.
Transactions started here.
It's I don't know. It doesn't like I don't get
other than Skyrim.
That was DLC at least. That wasn't microtransactions.
It's microtransactions. It may not have an in-game store, but it's microtransactions.
It was like the pre-crux of it. Like I agree that it's not great, but like there's at least like. You can go out and buy the physical thing, and it's kind of an expansion. But this was like you go to your in-game, and you open up the menu, and it puts it in your face, being like, "Hey, you can buy it with currency. You don't have to grind for it.
Just put in your credit card. You don't have to
and it's like, hey, you can just buy this. Here's the real currency or the currency you can buy beside it. It's that part.
I changed the wording for you to in-game transactions. Started here.
Yes, that is accurate.
Yeah, it also breaks immersion for like the single player. It's really weird to be able to have that like. God wallet come in and just save you. Even just seeing it breaks that immersion because you realize all this is a game. This is I'm not constrained by the rules of this world. I'm constrained by the rules of my wallet.
So I didn't hit any bugs that I remember.
I can think of a couple of like clippy things that were weird, just like FP errors and collision.
Falling through the floor into black space of death? Did that happen to me or you?
Floor.
Did that happen to me?
we have repressed so much in this game.
I played this game co-op, and there was some jankiness that would happen. There was a few times where, like, there's one part where you need to get on the subway train, or just get on a train, and you have to wait for it. And then the game glitched on us twice, where the doors just wouldn't open. And then one time the door did open, and then the train wouldn't move. And then on the third time, it just we thought we were doing something wrong. And turns out the game's just missing triggers and missing state for some reason, causing it to be kind of eh. But overall, that still states okay. I had one hiccup, and that was on like a near on launch experience, I believe.
And I mean, I remember some similar things happened, just little things, nothing so major that I would remember it. And I was able to finish the game. At worst, maybe you die and you gotta replay a little section from where you last saved. Hopefully you save often. You should always save often. Yep. Always. No excuse. If you passed a save point and lost an hour's progress, that's on you. RNG...
Bad.
For the loot from the enemies?
RNG for enemy loot is acceptable. The way they implemented it is unacceptable. They implemented it in such a way to push you towards the microtransaction store.
And this is where I wanted to put it in.
They also had the RNG of gathering components with those little bots that were to encourage you to buy what was essentially loot boxes so that you would get more of those components. Like it's just bad. It is just bad. It is offensive.
Yeah, it doesn't complement the experience at all. It just kind of detracts from it. If you're using RNG and loot, it shouldn't be a frustrating thing, and you shouldn't feel like it's a chore. If there's RNG and loot, it should be because there's rare items that will drop that excite you and make you, reward you for playing the game for a while and killing those things. It shouldn't be, we put RNG drops in to, fluff out the game length or, fluff out the experience, or in this case, make you want to pay money to negate the fact of our RNG that we put in.
TLDR, EA are scum. That's a good sum up, Rubido. Fortunately, they're from here, too. Control. I thought it was
I don't
good.
remember.
I think it was okay. I mean, the guns still feel really great. It's still super satisfying to,
I think it deserves a good still. I thought it was responsive and it's typical. Yeah, well, it's still Visceral's game.
Yeah, it's still Visceral's engine. I was going to say it's still basically the second game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the flying, they tweaked it and it's still good. Like the space sequence, the zero gravity and stuff like that.
Honestly, I think it's good. Yeah. Rubido's in agreeance with us on this one as well. Yeah, the game did get a few goods. Turns out, no matter what, even if EA steps in and kicks the game in the nuts, Visceral can still make it control, sound, and animate well. That's accurate. That's really accurate.
It's all just core engine stuff.
I think that's probably a pretty accurate summary. Writing's bad. Video was okay. The audio was okay. Gameplay was okay. If it wasn't written so terribly due to EA's... The music was bad.
The music was bad, but the sound effects were actually excellent because it's Visceral, and Visceral does an excellent job with sound effects.
The voice acting was okay, so it ends up kind of a hodgepodge of. Oh right, I forgot. Yeah, you see, you black it out.
We pressed it too. We forgot.
We were going to give it a good, and then I was like, oh, wait, the country music and the derelict spaceships. And then we were like, oh, I didn't want to remember that. Yeah. If it's that bad, it has to get a bad. If you're repressing the memory of the music, it's... I mean, look here, look. You want to know why the music gets bad? You come here and it goes, the music was so bad, we originally repressed it. Luckily, we remembered before you went to play the game. I'm trying not to laugh so hard because I'll wake my mom up. Yup. Accurate. Accurate.
So that is our review of Dead Space 3. In short, don't bother. Just play 2 again. You'll have a better time.
Though it's not as bad as I actually anticipated in the finals.
I'd only recommend it in the sense of, well, not really recommend it, but I could see it if someone liked Dead Space. If there's 2 people who really like Dead Space and they wanted to play it together, then like sure, as long as you know that, you know, the saving grace is going to be playing it with a friend. I could still, because I played a co-op and it still wasn't great, but I mean, if you like the Dead Space series, it is still kind of fun to like shoot those enemies with a buddy in the same room. But I wouldn't recommend not getting it on sale or, you know, getting it off EA Access or something like that.
Oh, yeah, if you can get it free or cheap, totally worth playing with a friend.
So as we, you know, often say, it's, you know, playing with a friend is not a justification of a game. That does not make a game fun. But if you love Dead Space and you really want to play with a friend, it does enable that. And it is...
I think that...
There's chunks of it that are definitely Dead Space.
If you play with a friend, it helps like detract a lot of the bad about it, because, you know, you just don't think about the music that's going on. You don't think about, you know, how bad the characters are. You're kind of just having silliness. It doesn't mean it's a good game in any sense. I'm just saying that, like, in that edge case of like you're both Dead Space friends, you're both Dead Space fans, and you're looking for something to do, and it's like $1, then like it'll kill some hours, and you won't absolutely hate the entire time. It'll kill some time.
Much like our experience with ODST last night, where the game was bad. I still had fun because I was playing with you guys, but the game was bad.
I think it's still better than ODST. There's still content in the game. There's still necromorphs for you to shoot and stuff like that.
It is definitely better than ODST, but it's bad.
So, give away some games?
Yeah, I guess it's that time, isn't it?
Away some games. Who likes free games?
We played Halo ODST, or Halo 3 ODST last night. Don't play it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Was that the last of the Master Chief Collection? I just thought about that.
You've never heard of it? Good. Keep it that way.
It wasn't... I don't know if it was even... It was more built off of Halo 3 than I think it ever was its standalone game. I don't know if it even launched at a full price.
It fucking better not have. The game was terrible.
Could you imagine paying full price for that game?
ODST.
Oh, maybe it did. Maybe it did launch at $60.
Why does it have a 9 out of 10 rating on Steam? That game was awful.
Did they play the same game we played?
Oh, you know what it is? I bet it's rolled into the Master Chief Collection reviews.
Oh, that could be.
And yes, ODST is the last one, and that's unfortunate because it's shit.
What a way to end it off.
Oh no, Halo 4. Totally wrong.
Good. I heard Halo 4 is worse, though.
Even worse. Yep.
And 5 is even worse.
I think Halo 4. I don't know. It's all over the place.
I mean, I already bought it. I bought the whole Master Chief Collection. Let's play it. I'm not expecting it to be good.
Yeah, no, I'll still be playing it, I'm sure. I mean, on stream, people will come in and laugh and be like, "Oh, you're playing this one." Rip. No, stream didn't die. I opened a network file and it took an ass load of time to load it. It's an ODS file. It's not that big. I don't know why it took its time, but it did.
I'm just expecting the Halo 4 campaign to at least be not like better, but at least more enjoyable with with a bunch of people than ODST was.
I expect there to be enemies.
Yeah.
Shit.
Better be.
I'm gonna get the thing I saved. I need to grab that.
You saved a
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, my audio
slaps.
The slaps. Yeah.
music.
Go ahead and play it for us. He had no music the entire game for some reason, and apparently the sound of the running of the characters just sounds like wet meat slapping on concrete. So when all of us were running in a group, it was just like a bunch of wet steaks hitting the ground constantly. I want to hear this too.
I'll throw it in Discord because I don't have a way to throw it right through now, and I also have to find it because I have no idea where it's
You
saved.
need voice meter.
I have to clip it through. Where is it? I just have to physically find the file, and it'll take me a bit because I've got 3 drives that it could have gone to.
No problem. I've got to type out a few names of some subs here and find a better way to do this.
Yeah, the best one, I think the one I recorded was when there was the all 4 of us were walking just in the rain, and it was just like it's probably slightly exaggerated, but you'll still at least see what I mean. And it was loud enough that it was I didn't know what it was. Like I didn't think it was footsteps when I first heard them. Like, what the hell is that sound? Like, is there like what is that? And then eventually like I stopped and it stopped. I'm like, uh-oh, it's me. I am that sound.
God, that game sucked. I'm so glad I didn't play that video game when it came out.
I'm so glad I didn't play that video game alone.
Halo did not age well. The first one did not age well.
Yeah, I actually didn't
2
enjoy it nearly as much as I expected I would.
Halo 2 also did not age well, but was not as offensive as Halo 1. Halo 3 we legitimately had a lot of fun with. Halo 4, hopefully, we will also have fun with, and it'll have enemies in it.
Hopefully.
I found it.
If only you could pipe it into your... But...
I mean, I could.
Then do it.
But I'd rather clip it. I need to, it's a 5-minute file that I have to clip like 10 seconds out of.
Do it. Put it in Discord. I dare you.
Double dog dare you. Oh ho. Almost done. I'm just going through the week's bits and stuff. Days ago. All right, good to do it. That's a bunch of names. Give away some games.